What's up everybody, it's Kiyodo and welcome back to another SMT Dx2 video. Today we're going to be going over the 3 new demons being added to the game for the 1-year anniversary, and that's going to be Herald, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. So all 3 of them have their own unique skills, we'll be going over that. And they do have some very interesting buffs here. They're auto buffs that start at the beginning of the turn, but only if you have 3 or more heralds in the party. And I'm not sure if that's the way that SMT is going to be going, where you have to have specific types in order to get these buffs, but at least we're seeing it right here. And these guys seem to be pretty decent for PvE, not so much for PvP, because I feel like the requirement of having 3 or more heralds in the team is a little bit too strict for PvP. But in this case, their buffs are pretty nice for PvE just because they're very constant at the start of your turn, and then it's basically having them all the time. So we're going to be going in order here from top to bottom. First we have Herald Gabriel. This seems like a relatively strong single target demon, and let's go ahead into the skills. First, Thunder Rain, that's going to be a lightning based skill, so that is more of your single target attacks. I think all of them do have some form of single target attack and a way to get an AoE attack as well. Then you have God's Word. So looking at the unique skills here, God's Word, increasing elect, and most notably the light damage is what we're looking at here, because we're most likely pairing these people with Mastema, and Mastema being a really strong attacker, it does have some really nice buffs for light damage, especially because all of them will have this type of hybrid buff where light damage is also one of the things that gets buffed. So having 2 or more is going to be really good in the party, especially if you're getting in that extra chain effect, which we'll be getting into just a bit. So increasing elect and light damage by 10% when there are 3 or more divine or herald demons. So it could, I guess, use divine demons too, but sure. In any case, activates the following chain effect here. Inflict light damage with light pierce effect on all enemies. So that's going to be your AoE. Power of 100 being relatively powerful. So I want to say that that's something that you should be looking into. And then it's kind of a weird thing to have for mages, but you get to increase the evac by 20% if successful, which in PvE probably gonna be successful because it has pierce. And then you have the other unique skill, which is going to be Ascension. This I feel like is one of the better unique skills out of the 3. It does light damage with light pierce effect on a single enemy, which can be really useful, especially for bossing. I feel like these guys are definitely going to be used for Brands of Sin Sloth, just because you have that light damage that you need to do. And doing 160 power. 160 power is really high for the amount of MP cost that it has. And especially because when you max it out, you can make it cost 5 and then increase the damage on it. Really good stuff. And looking at this, it gives a revive. So it's basically like a recarm, a free recarm with an attack if your attack is successful, which I don't see it not being successful, especially if it is a single target here, which makes it a little bit easier to land, honestly. But I don't know how useful it's going to be. Like, I can see it working in PvP if you're going with the Ixtab sort of build, or maybe just like some sort of tanky, like revive support build where it just keeps reviving your other guys. I don't know. It could work, but I'm not too sure if that will. It feels like you need some insta kills on your team, so maybe you'll throw in like an Alice or whatever. It's got some weird things in the lab. We're just not too sure. And even though these guys will release very shortly, I feel like they're not going to be used that much for PvP. Again, this is more of like a PvE focused demon. So those unique skills, really awesome. Looking at the red, I feel like is going to be the best archetype for these guys, just because it's usually something like Mohammedan, which is going to reduce the cost. You're going to be using Mohammedan a lot in Sloth, so yeah, seems like a really nice skill. If you do happen to pull it, light enhancement on top of that, I would most likely throw that onto Mastema first, and then there are some other like decent attackers on these guys too, but we'll be going into that. I mean, you could go for purple with the elect enhancement, but I feel like you're not going to be getting too much out of Thunder Rain. You're more so getting more out of the Ascension and then the Mohammedan. So red, really powerful Gabriel, though the buff that it gives is evac. And for mages, feels like it's not too necessary. You can cover the weakness with Repel Dark, but I feel like you don't need that, especially if you're doing it for PvE, where you know you can kind of choose demons specifically to dodge certain, magic types. You know what you're fighting, basically. The Auto Secunda, though, would be really nice to pull as well if you are pulling for these guys. Not like you really should for any, main reason, per se, but it could be a thing. Who knows? Looking at the Spirit Merge for all of them, on panel 2 seems to be the best thing. I'm not sure if it's really nice to go for panel 1. You don't really need the panel 3, but it's in there for the extra damage if you just happen to get them. But going for panel 2 seems like a really good thing, because all of them have the similar effect here, where if you're getting like the buff or the debuff or something, it gives you the opposite of that. So you're getting like the debuff version in like as a chain effect for doing the buff version. So it's like a double buff on all of them, which is really, really nice. Again, having evac on mages, not so really that worth. So I don't know if that's the one that you want to go with. I feel like Gabriel may be getting the short end of the stick here. More so better for PvP though, because of the way it has a single target attack with the revive on it. And then moving on to Raphael. So Raphael is more of your defensive unit here. Although I guess you could say that Gabriel is a defensive unit with the evac. Raphael more so because he has the defense buffs on that. We'll be going to that. Thunderclap being the light version. It's not really a lightning based attack, it's light just because it says Thunderclap. It's kind of confusing, but yeah, so it's a bit expensive because it's not getting the decreased cost as a innate skill. But you do have God's Blessing. Moving on to that, that's Force and Light. So this guy's going to be Force based as a mage, giving that 10%, so light damage again, 10%. And then with Divine or Herald Demons, you get the chain effect, and that can be really nice. It does have a heal on it. The power level of it is just not that great, so you shouldn't be expecting too much out of the heal. In fact, pretty much is not there. It's there for the defense buff though. You're getting the free Rakukaja. That is relatively nice, especially when you're doing the later versions of Sloth like 10 or 11. Then they're going to be doing a lot of damage. And this guy could be pretty nice if you can't one turn kill him. And looking at the other unique skill, Tailwind here, MP6, you can reduce the cost at max. It feels like you don't really need to though, because it is a forced skill. And it does hit random allies. More decent for bossing. There are some Guru Makalas, so that could be useful against them, in PvE at least. Then it has the same effect of reviving an ally at random, which is probably going to be like the one that's dead, honestly, or I guess two. Either way, one of them is going to be useful to revive. In any case that's giving you an extra revive, like you don't really need all these recarms. They all have a form of recarm on their attack, and I feel like that's kind of a weird skill to give, but sure. And it has a power of 45. That's like relatively decent for a multi-hit attack, especially one that hits 4 times. And most likely if you're using Eileen, then you're getting that 5th attack off. On top of that, it looks like you're really not using this guy for the force attack, as again, you have Mohammedine on red and then there's light enhancement. Though there is prayer on yellow, I feel like that could maybe be doing something. Force enhancement if you're trying to use this unit as more like an all-arounder type of unit, although I feel like it's not really that necessary. And then pulling a teal version of this isn't so bad because Auto Tarunda, that is relatively good. And then again, Spirit Merge on second panel, really good because they're reducing the attack of all the enemies. It's a debuff version of your defense. So getting that double defense buff, pretty useful in there. I feel like Raphael is a really nice, versatile, tankier version of a unit. And then you can go red for the damage. So you have best of both worlds. And then looking at Uriel, who is the most aggressive. So this is going to be a fire-based mage. You know, go figure, the fire-based mages are more aggressive. In any case, you do have innate Mohammedine, so it doesn't give you the cost reduction that you would have on red, but on the trade-off, you do have Thunderclap, so that is going to be the light version of an attack, and that's reduced, so at least when you're bossing, then you can get that single hit, and it'll cost 1 MP less, which is kind of useful in this case because I feel like this is the one out of the 3 that's more useful with Divine Brands than with Spell Brands. The others I feel like can definitely go Spell Brands and get away with it. Whereas this one, it does have an MP cost of 7 on the unique skill. So even though you're reducing it by 1, you can't use it like every turn. You might get it every other turn just because having a 6 cost thing is really useful. It's like a good middle ground for having Divine Brands on a relatively cheap skill. But if you have Spell Brands, then you kind of have to wait for your skills. In any case, there's Mohammedine as an innate skill, but then we go on to God's Fire. God's Fire is going to increase fire damage and then light damage again, of course. So having all 3 or all 3 plus Maxima could be really, really amazing. I feel like one of them could use Speedster, and most likely that's going to be Raphael because Raphael's agility stat is the highest. and it's kind of like a tanky unit. You can kind of give it away for more support, and that way you're not losing out too much damage from the other two if you decide to use them as DPSers. So, increasing fire and light damage by 10%, and then you have the chain effect, which is going to do fire damage 3 times on random enemies with Fire Pierce, of course. Has a power level of 50, it's like kind of okay for the 3 hits, but if you're using Eileen, most likely going to get the 4th one off as well. But it increases own party's attack if it's successful, so that's the Taruka buff, which is really, really useful for killing teams really fast. That's one of the reasons why you're going to want to have at least 3 or more Divine or Heralds on your team. Mostly because of this guy, like Uriel, really, really aggressive, good for PvE for sure. And then looking at the second unique skill here, we have Sunrise. Inflicts fire damage, of course, Fire Mage, with Fire Pierce, just like all of them. And then you get the free Bakarm skill, kind of a weird thing. Being a power level of 120 though, for the cost of 7, which can go down to 6. It's a pretty good trade-off. Like, this is why Divine Brands are kind of nice. You'll be able to spam it. Not too sure who's going to have that many fire weaknesses in PvP, though in PvE, there's a chance that it could work out. Because it is an AoE skill, he's not single targeting the Scotty, for example, in slots, so that's actually not too bad. And then increasing the damage, of course, is always a useful thing. Looking at the Spirit Merge, you do have the extra debuff version for Rakunda. Super, super aggressive. I feel like if you were to Spirit Merge any of them first, it would be either, I would say Uriel first for PvE damage, and then if you really need like the defense, then you'd go for Raphael. In any case, looking at the other skills here, you have Thunderclap, like we said, good for the whole like single target bossing thing. Light enhancement if you happen to pull it, not bad. Then if you want to cover all the weaknesses, you have Repel Dark. This is the only unit that doesn't have like any other resistances. You can see Repel, Repel, and then Weak. And then you have resistances on some of these. It's kind of weird that he doesn't get a resistance, but that's okay because he's more of the aggressive type. And then looking at fire enhancement, you can go for that. It feels like enhancement is getting a little bit cucked because you're not getting the fire amp, but they're fusible demons. You can't expect them to have like the greatest things on them. And having to concentrate on yellow would mean that you can't auto with this unit because concentrate kind of ruins things. Having the auto Rakunda though, pretty nice for PvP though, as you're just pulling for these guys. Like the banner should be pretty decent if you're going for it. As long as you happen to pull one of them, just, you gotta take that into account too, because the fact that you're gonna pull one of these 3 5-stars and in the right color, I would not rely on it. Though it looks like red is going to be the best for aggression. Out of all of them brand-wise, I feel like Uriel's the only one that really kind of sort of needs the Divine Brands if you want to use them more spammy. Though if you were to do the Spirit Merge buffs, then I would say Uriel first, then Raphael, and then it kind of feels like Gabriel doesn't need them unless you're really basing this guy for PvP. So yeah, that is my overall summary of these 3 demons. They're looking pretty promising. Putting this guy with a Mastema especially is going to be huge. I guess Sandalphon is going to be your other option if you don't happen to have the other ones, but it can work out. These guys, you only need one of them, but if you get the panel 2, that's awesome for you. Extra damage, killing things a lot faster. You might be able to run slot 11 a lot easier with these guys now. You don't really need these like gacha only demons. This is more helpful for the free to play players because a lot of the time you would kind of need the gacha only demons in order to finish these things on auto. So I feel like these guys together especially are going to make autoing your brand farming a lot easier, and therefore you should probably look into them. So this has been Kiyodo. Tell me what you all think about it in the comment section below. Maybe give your own builds and maybe some reasoning to pull them, or maybe some priority as like which one would you want to build up first. As for me, you already know my order. But then we also have the introduction of the new Drake race coming in. Who knows what kind of demons that's going to be. We'll have to check that out in another video. And so I'll see you all on the next one. Later.